The microphone crackled, and then the words hit like a hammer. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe The Rock isn't as charming as you think. A laugh echoed through the studio, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp, cutting, designed to sting. The audience froze for a fraction of a second. Then the laughter grew, some nervous, some cruel. And Dwayne Johnson, sat frozen in his chair. Shock, humiliation, and the entire studio felt it. It had been a live taping. Cameras rolled. Producers whispered into earpieces. Crew members shifted uncomfortably behind the lights. The host, smiling, leaning casually against the desk, had been building tension all night, teasing celebrities, making jokes, and cultivating this persona of sharp wit. But this one crossed the line. Dwayne's jaw clenched subtly. He exhaled slowly, keeping a perfect calm that only decades of wrestling and acting could forge. The host, oblivious, continued. I mean, come on. You think lifting weights makes you invincible? Maybe in the gym, but not on this stage. The laughter grew louder. Some people cheered mockingly. Others whispered behind their hands. Dwayne looked toward the director, the producer, even the audience, but no one stopped. It was public, on air. Humiliation delivered with a smile. The camera zoomed in on Dwayne's face. Calm, measured, controlled. But inside, a storm brewed. He thought back to every performance, every stunt, every punch, and every time he had been underestimated. And this host, this person, who had no idea, was about to find out exactly who they were dealing with. The host leaned in, smirking, raising an eyebrow. You're quiet tonight, Dwayne. Don't tell me you're intimidated. A ripple of laughter followed. But Dwayne didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly, as if the air itself were part of his strategy. Intimidated, he said evenly. Hardly. The audience quieted slightly, sensing the shift. You see, Dwayne continued, voice low but deliberate. I'm not in the business of reacting to noise. I respond to facts. The host laughed nervously. Oh, really? And what facts would those be? Dwayne leaned forward slightly, eyes locked on the camera, calm as ever. The fact that the world watches everything we do. Silence. A producer whispered into an earpiece. Cut the tension. But Dwayne ignored it. He knew this wasn't about production control. This was about control in the room. You just humiliated someone you should have respected, Dwayne continued. Live. On television. And for what? The host chuckled, trying to regain footing. It's comedy. You can't take it so seriously. I don't take it seriously, Dwayne said slowly. I take it responsibly. Every word, carefully measured. Every pause, intentional. The audience leaned forward. Crew members shifted. Even other guests on the stage could feel the tension. The host tried another joke, softer this time. Well, maybe I misread the situation. Misread? Dwayne interrupted softly. Let me help you with clarity. And that's when the first shock came. He stood, tall, commanding, calm. The audience gasped. The host froze. Dwayne's presence didn't scream threat. It radiated authority. Years of discipline, of physical training, of mastering the room. Everything came together in a single, measured stance. Every word you just said, Dwayne continued, voice steady, was recorded. Every frame, every reaction. And it reflects not on me, but on you. The host tried to laugh it off. Oh, come on, it's just a joke. Dwayne raised a hand slightly. No gesture of aggression, only emphasis. Jokes are easy when no one is watching carefully. But influence is heavier than humor. Every word you say matters. Especially when you aim it at someone else's dignity. A pause. The studio felt like it held its breath. The next words were calm, but each one landed like a hammer. You embarrassed yourself publicly. But the ending? The ending will define how people remember this moment. The host's smile faltered. Dwayne's gaze swept over the cameras, the crew, the audience. And here's the ending. The monitors behind them flickered. Footage appeared, clips from the host's past shows. Every time they had mocked, belittled, or humiliated a guest. A compilation, cleanly edited, sharp, relentless. The audience gasped audibly. Some laughed nervously. Some muttered. Dwayne continued. You see, influence has consequences. Words have weight. And those who wield them carelessly, well, they eventually meet accountability. The host stumbled, confused. What are you? Dwayne didn't answer. He let the footage speak. The camera cut to the studio audience on live broadcast. Shock painted every face. The host, pale, tried to speak. Words failed. And then Dwayne delivered the final blow. Not physical, not violent, but far more potent. Your reputation isn't built by laughs at someone else's expense. It's built by respect. Something you just lost on national television. A hush fell over the studio. The audience didn't clap. They stared. Phones recorded. Social media buzzed instantly. Dwayne sat back down. Calm. Controlled. The host slumped. Visibly rattled. Unsure how to recover. The studio lights felt hotter now. Each glare highlighting the sweat forming at his temples. Cameras rolled, but no one spoke. The audience had stopped laughing. Their energy shifting from amusement to awe. Dwayne Johnson leaned back in his chair, arms crossed casually, yet every inch of him radiated authority. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to gesture wildly. Calm control spoke louder than any insult the host had hurled. Whispers buzzed through the crowd. Did he just? Wow, he owns that stage without moving. Everything the host said flipped on him. The crew behind the cameras exchanged uneasy glances. Producers tapped their earpieces frantically, muttering about timing and edits. But Dwayne ignored the chaos. He was focused entirely on the energy in the room. He knew something crucial. Humiliation is temporary. Power, properly wielded, is permanent. The host finally opened his mouth, fumbling. Well, maybe we went a bit far? Dwayne tilted his head slightly, eyes calm but unblinking. A bit far? He echoed, letting the words linger. The room contracted with tension. You went too far. On live television, in front of thousands. And you didn't just attack me, you attacked respect. And that has consequences. The audience murmured in agreement. The laughter that had echoed earlier had died completely. Now it was replaced by a quiet, almost reverent attention. Dwayne leaned forward slightly, voice measured but cutting. Let me tell you something. I've been in wrestling rings, movie sets, and boardrooms. I've faced pressure, criticism, and countless attempts to bring me down. But there's one rule I live by. Never let someone else's ignorance define your power. He paused, letting that statement sink in. And that, he added slowly, is exactly what just happened here. Your jokes? Your jabs? They reflected you, not me. The host's forced smile wavered. His composure, once unshakable, now felt brittle. The audience's phones were raised, recording every second. Social media would explode in minutes. Clips of Dwayne's calm, controlled dominance would go viral. Memes, hashtags, and commentary were already forming in the minds of viewers at home. And the host couldn't do a thing to stop it. Dwayne's eyes swept over the crowd, over the cameras, and finally landed on the host. I don't need to escalate, he said. I don't need to yell. I don't need theatrics. Presence is enough. Authority is enough. Control is enough. And humility? That's priceless. Something you clearly don't understand yet. The words hit like slow-motion thunder. The audience felt it in their chest. Some laughed nervously. Some whispered in awe. But no one dared interrupt. A stagehand nudged a producer. Is he serious? The producer shook his head, eyes wide. Completely. And I don't think anyone has ever seen the host this speechless. Indeed. The host's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. He tried to salvage humor, but the weight of Dwayne's calm authority suffocated every attempt. Dwayne straightened in his chair, exhaling lightly. And this, he said, pointing subtly to the host, is why you should think before you humiliate someone publicly. Because the moment you try to tear someone down, you reveal more about yourself than you ever could about them. The silence that followed was deafening. The audience had completely absorbed it. The host's smile had vanished entirely, replaced by a tight, uncertain expression. Then, just when the tension felt unbearable, Dwayne added the kicker. I don't hold grudges. I don't need revenge. But I do respect accountability. He leaned back, letting that settle. And right now, accountability is standing right here. He gestured subtly toward the host. The room's energy shifted again. The shock had turned into a lesson. The audience understood. The host's arrogance had collided with someone who wielded real power, quietly, steadily, and impeccably. A single clap rang out from the back of the studio. Then another, and another. Slowly, the audience began to rise, giving a standing ovation. Not for a joke, not for entertainment, but for the authority, composure, and unshakable confidence Dwayne had demonstrated. The host attempted to interject. Wait, this isn't. But his voice faltered. The words didn't land. Dwayne's presence, calm and commanding, swallowed every attempt to reclaim the room. The host's voice faltered. Every word he tried to force out landed hollowly. The room no longer belonged to him. Not really. Every eye in the studio had shifted, drawn to the calm, measured presence of Dwayne Johnson. He could feel it. The tension. The weight of hundreds of cameras trained on him. Hundreds of whispers filling the space. All anchored to a single fact. He had crossed the line. Dwayne didn't move too quickly. He didn't need theatrics. Just a subtle lean forward, a tilt of the head, and the entire energy of the room bent toward him. That quiet command, the kind built over decades of wrestling rings, movie sets, and boardroom negotiations, was unmistakable. He spoke slowly, letting each word hit. You thought this was entertainment. A moment to prove yourself funny at someone else's expense. But here's the thing. The pause was deliberate, calculated. The audience leaned in unconsciously. Even the crew froze mid-motion. Comedy doesn't excuse disrespect, and arrogance doesn't justify humiliation. A ripple went through the audience. Murmurs of agreement, whispers of awe. The host swallowed nervously. Dwayne's calm control had made him irrelevant in the room. The cameras caught every twitch of his face, every hesitation. He tried to force a laugh, a joke, anything, but it fell flat. The words that had once seemed sharp now felt small, impotent. Dwayne's eyes scanned the audience briefly. No one laughed. No one cheered. The energy in the studio had shifted entirely. It was no longer about entertainment. It was about authority, presence, and accountability. You see, Dwayne continued, voice smooth but commanding, people often think power is loud. Power is reaction. But the real power is composure. It's knowing your worth when everyone else tries to take it from you. The host's posture stiffened. He could feel the room closing in, the gaze of hundreds, crew, audience, cameras, burning into him. He was still technically the host. He was still technically in control of the microphone. But the authority had shifted. The stage no longer answered to him. It answered to the man he had tried to humiliate. Dwayne leaned back slightly, letting the silence stretch, filling every corner of the studio with tension so thick it almost buzzed. You think a joke at someone else's expense proves something, he said softly, almost conversationally. It doesn't. It only shows what you're willing to risk for a laugh. And today, the risk? Your credibility. The audience murmured. Phones clicked. Social media would explode. Clips would trend. And every single person in that studio felt it. The shock of authority exercised perfectly, without a raised voice or physical aggression. Dwayne's presence wasn't aggressive. It was magnetic, calm, measured, absolute. You wanted me to react, he said, eyes locking on the host. But you forgot one rule. I control my reaction. And I always do. The room was still. The host's face paled. His smirk had vanished completely. The power shift was undeniable. Dwayne's voice lowered slightly, intimate but cutting. Look around. Every person in this room is watching. Every word you've spoken will be remembered, analyzed, and shared. And your actions? They reveal more about you than they ever did about me. A faint tremor ran through the host. His hands gripped the desk. His microphone felt heavy. He had lost the narrative entirely. Dwayne let the silence linger a beat longer. And that, he said finally, leaning back, calm and composed, is why the ending of this moment isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It isn't what you expected. The audience leaned in. The studio crew exchanged looks. Even the producer behind the glass knew they were witnessing something rare. The ending, Dwayne continued, voice steady, is control, presence, authority exercised with calm and dignity. Something you clearly don't understand yet. A low clap broke out in the back of the studio. One by one, more claps followed. Slowly, the audience rose to its feet. Some cheered quietly. Some whispered. But the overwhelming energy was respect, awe, and shock. The host tried to interject. Wait, this isn't. Dwayne cut him off with a calm hand gesture. No, this is exactly what it is. You sought to humiliate. You failed. The lesson? Respect isn't optional, and control is undeniable. Cameras panned over the stunned audience. Every angle captured the host frozen mid-recovery. Dwayne sitting with perfect composure and the hum of disbelief in the air. The studio director whispered urgently into the earpiece. Rap, just rap it. But even as the crew scrambled, Dwayne's words had already landed. The moment had shifted. The power dynamic was permanently altered. He stood finally, not in anger, not in triumph, but in simple, undeniable presence. Every inch of him radiated authority. Power, he said, soft but penetrating, isn't about humiliation. It isn't about winning an audience over by tearing someone down. It's about knowing who you are, controlling your response, and demanding accountability without aggression. The audience erupted, this time not nervously, but with genuine applause. Standing, shouts of awe, cameras capturing every second for posterity. The host slumped in his chair, defeated, speechless, and utterly exposed. Dwayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't yell. He didn't throw a single punch. And yet, the entire studio understood he had won. Completely. Not because of theatrics, not because of fame, but because of composure, clarity, and an unshakable command of the moment. The ending shocked everyone in the studio. Not loud, not explosive, but in a way they would never forget.